Nick, do you know what I love?
What do you love, Kyle?
Things that are small, cute, and cuddly.
I knew you loved me.
God damn it. Yes, I love you to the max.
Yes.
No, I'm talking about small little creatures that swim around and swim on their backs and gather together.
Oh, I know what you're talking about.
What are we talking about?
Sea otters.
Yes, the California Sea Otter.
The California Sea Otter. All right, Kyle. You want some info on the California Sea Otter?
Yes. I just thought it was funny that I introduced it and say, what are we talking about? And you're like,
And I got all the info. It's all right. It's all right. All right. So let's start it off here. We got the smallest marine mammal.
The smallest marine mammal.
The smallest marine mammal.
But
the largest of the weasel family.
Yeah.
They're related to weasels.
When I looked that up, I was like, in the first thing was like, I forgot what I looked up, but it was like, they're part of the weasel family. I was like, huh? And then I kind of like...
I don't even know if I can like picture a weasel right now.
A ferret. Think of a ferret that's in the weasel family.
Okay.
There you go. Wiggly.
Got it.
Wiggly little creatures with fur.
I would have thought they were like, so are beavers part of the weasel family?
Maybe? No, because they got that flappy tail, dude.
That's true. Okay.
I think they're in the... I don't even know care about
That's
beavers.
weird. Interesting. All right. But yeah, so they're part of the weasel family. Now everybody knows.
If
So
you didn't know, I guess.
yeah,
We
I
didn't
guess
know.
if you didn't know,
We're supposed to have them by our shores, but you know.
we'll get to that. We're getting there.
Yeah.
So let's talk about sizes here. So adult males, 4 feet 3 inches.
Mm-hmm.
Actually kind of bigger than I expected.
That's a pretty, I'm 6 foot exactly. So to put that into perspective, that's right about my chest height.
Yeah.
That's
I mean, you're sitting down, but yeah, I understand.
I thought about standing up there for a second.
So yeah, 4 feet 3 inches, 64 pounds for the males.
That is a big animal. I mean, okay, it's not
It's not a big animal, but like
But when I think of that, I think of
when you think of like sea otters, you think of these like cute little like teddy bear sized
Yeah.
things, and no, they're 4 feet long.
that's the size of KJ. That's the size of my dog.
Yeah, that is the size of your dog.
I mean, I've picked her up and it's not fun.
You can't lift 64 pounds?
No, I can. It's just when you have a creature that's just like, don't hold me.
Yeah. So the males are mature at 5 years, which is pretty young. Pretty young.
Yeah, what's the overall lifespan?
About 15 years.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, that's about right.
That's sad. That's not very long.
It's not very long, is it?
Yeah.
I was shocked by that too.
I would have imagined, a mammal, like most mammals, it's like in the 20s.
Yeah.
Average, I guess. There's some that live a very long time.
Yeah. 15 seems rather short, but I guess they do produce at a pretty quick rate. So
Yeah, but they only produce about 1 pup a year, right?
I believe so. Yeah. I think we'll get to that in a minute here.
Oh, sorry. Jumping
Jumping
guns.
ahead, man. So yeah, males 4 feet, females just under that, 3 feet 8 inches. So a little bit less than a foot shorter.
That's still, because like when you go to see them, like I've seen them in Morro Bay. I think you have too.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
you see them when we go to Monterey, but you see them from a distance. They don't look that big.
Yeah.
And I don't know. It's just
Even at the aquarium, they look pretty small.
because they're always moving. They're always just like
That's true. They do move a lot.
They're just so like flowy.
Yeah. Females are also 20 pounds lighter at 44 pounds. And they are mature at 3 years. So a little bit sooner than the males.
We're talking about, sexually mature. Like they can start producing.
Like that's, yeah.
Interesting how the male...
That's when the males start to grow beards and stuff.
and get their white heads. It's interesting to me that the male is mature at an older age than the female.
Yeah. Kind of like humans.
Like, when you talk...
I mean, that's true. And the female brain is actually more mature earlier on than
Well, yeah,
the
they
male
have
brain.
way more hormones than we do.
Yeah, I don't know what it is, but I knew that fact. So they are marine mammals, but unlike other marine mammals like whales, they have no blubber.
Correct. They have fur.
So they stay warm with fur. I was going to ask you, how do they stay warm, Kyle?
Sorry, fur.
Thanks for just blowing it.
Fur real.
Yeah, so they have water resistant fur, which is pretty interesting. I mean,
very dense.
it's very dense fur, yes. But you would think, when you go in the water, your hair gets wet.
Yeah.
Like that doesn't seem like it would keep you warm. What they have is 2 layers of fur. So their under layer of fur, which is a short, more dense layer of fur, actually has 1 million hairs per square inch.
That's a lot.
A square inch. Like an inch is pretty small. Make that a square. 1 million hairs. You know how many hairs you have on your head? Roughly?
Like 1,000 per square inch?
Like 100,000 total. I don't know about square inch. Yeah,
Well,
I guess
mean,
roughly.
there's like 100. Oh no, that's a lot of inches.
Probably be like 10,000 maybe.
Per square inch?
Yeah.
How
many square inches of head do you have?
Overthinking the size of my head.
You have a big head. Yeah, so 1 million hairs per inch. That's a lot of hairs,
Well,
man.
I mean, that explains how they
on a 4 foot animal.
Yeah, that's why they were targeted. I mean,
That's crazy. But yeah, so there's a short layer, and then on top of that, there's a little bit of a longer layer. Longer layer is a little bit less dense, but it has a oil on it that is basically water resistant. That oil is produced by glands that they have on their skin. But that outer layer basically protects the inner layer from getting wet, which uses air to insulate their body, which is a pretty good insulator.
I mean, it's a cool. I was going to say technology. It's a cool.
I mean, if you think about it, we do use that.
I mean,
we as humans use that in like dive suits and stuff. So a dry suit is literally an otter, basically.
Yeah, it's double layered.
We're using a barrier to protect a air layer that is keeping us warm.
Yeah, I mean, even all wetsuits technically use a layer or something. I mean, wetsuits use a small layer of water to insulate you. Your body warms that small layer.
Yeah.
And like my semi-dry wetsuit, I contain water within it and it stays in there. And it's always interesting to dump that out. Well, no, because it's warmer. Okay, get out of here. Yeah.
I wasn't sure where you were going
we
with
all
that.
pee on our wetsuit, everyone. If you don't pee in your wetsuit, why are you wearing a wetsuit?
Okay. I don't know about everybody. It's okay. Moving on. So about their hair color. So this is actually, I thought this was kind of interesting because it's kind of like humans, but so their hair color is normally a shade of brown. But in males, it actually turns gray and white as they age.
You're right on the top of their head, right? Or
Over their whole body.
Huh.
But yeah, mostly on their head. So you'll notice like the older males will have a white head or patches starting on their head.
Yeah.
As they get older, sometimes their whole body turns white to gray or whitish gray. So I thought that was pretty cool. That's, I mean, you think about it, it's kind of like us. You're going to get gray hair soon. Oh, wait. He already does.
Whoa.
No, I'm just kidding.
At least I have hair.
Because they have hair, of course, they do shed or molt. That usually takes place throughout the year. And they have to be very careful with their molting process because the last thing that they want to do is get that lower layer wet. So as that lower layer is molting, hopefully it doesn't melt. As it's molting, they have to constantly groom it and keep that outer layer nice and watertight.
Yeah, you always see that happening. And the grooming is like when they're going to town.
Yeah, they're pretty much constantly grooming their hair to keep that outer layer tight.
Yeah,
if there's any messed up hair there,
it's one of the few things they have to maintain in their life is their hair, and then they do a dang good job at it.
They do have very nice
wonderful hair.
It's almost like you.
Thank you.
Constantly maintaining your hair.
Okay.
But because of that, because it is hair, that does make them very susceptible to, of course, oil.
Right.
So any sort of oil spill or anything like that is, of course, going to clump that outer layer of hair, causing water to get to the lower area of hair, and ultimately leading to death via like pneumonia and hypothermia.
Yeah, I mean that's one of the main, I guess, contributors to their population decline is unnatural oil spills and events that take place. Luckily, that's been kind of under control on the California coast.
Yeah.
But it's still, I mean, you still hear about it, and that's like one of the main factors that when you hear about them is oil spills or unnatural oils or anything in the water, really.
Right.
And the hard part, too, is, I mean, they're such a near-shore animal. That if you think about it, how much gets dumped right into the water right there, and it's unfortunate. And, they're near harbors and bays, and that's where everything comes and goes. So.
Yeah, they usually live, I think it's like 1 to 2 miles offshore.
Yeah.
If not closer.
They stick within
pretty
those
close.
kelp beds.
They stick in the kelp beds, rocky marine habitats.
Yeah.
So anywhere that there's rocks on the bottom with some kelp, they'll be there. Usually about 20 meters deep is where they like to hang out. So not too deep, not too shallow, kind of just outside the break zone there.
Yeah,
with the
about
waves.
60 foot.
Yes, I think that is at 60 feet.
You said meters, so
I did say meters. Sorry.
It's like roughly 60 foot.
Yeah, because they like the kelp for a couple of reasons. The main one is to actually lay on, basically.
Yeah.
They basically wrap themselves up in it and go to sleep.
Yeah.
It kind of just anchors them to the bottom, and so they don't float off.
Well, I think the most interesting fact and fun fact that I like is a group of otters is called a raft.
Is it really?
Yeah. They like hold arms together basically and wrap themselves in the kelp, and they sit there and
little otter raft.
A raft, yeah.
Is there anything cuter? Okay,
no.
besides me, Kyle. Come on.
Okay, I was gonna say puppies, but
Puppies are pretty cute, but I mean, otters are basically like water puppies.
Water puppies, yeah. I mean, it's fun to like the words that people come up with to like group together animals. And you have a school of fish, and then you have a raft of otters. I just thought it was a cool
I think
thing.
crows are called murder, right?
A murder, yeah.
A murder of crows.
Yeah.
It's a weird one.
Yeah.
So they really like the kelp, 20 meters of depth, usually like 1 to 2 miles offshore. So this was really cool, and I didn't realize how far back they went, but fossil records actually indicate that sea otters and their ancestors have been here for 5 million years off the coast of California.
They're prehistoric.
How
old is historic or pre?
I don't know. It's not. Yeah. It's more than 5 million years, but
that's
5 million years is a pretty
close,
good length of time. It's pretty impressive
for a mammal too, which is surprising to be that long.
Right. Yeah. So historically, they've ranged from Baja California all the way up to Alaska. So basically, historically, we'll get there.
Yeah.
All the way up the west coast of North America.
Right.
I almost said South America for some reason. I don't know why. I think because I said Baja California, and I was like
Mexico and South.
Maybe that's no, but yeah, okay. So as Kyle said, the current sea otter range is quite a bit smaller than that.
Yeah,
like a lot smaller than that.
Very small.
As of now, the range extends from San Mateo County all the way down to the California all the way down the California coast to Point Conception. So it's not that much. I don't know miles wise. But it's just a couple hundred. It's nothing crazy.
No, it's basically contained within just the south of, I almost said Oxnard, Oregon into just like basically
half
just
of California.
Yeah, the bottom
so basically, Northern California.
Yeah, colder waters, temps.
There is, of course, a couple of kind of experimental groups. The biggest one, by experimental, I mean humans have moved them purposely there to see if they are able to live in that area and try to repopulate. So the biggest experimental group is on San Nicolas Island, and they actually moved them there to see if they could find new habitat and start moving them down south. So that was pretty cool.
Are they doing well down there?
Yeah, they're doing really well.
Do we know their population size?
I do not know their population size, and I knew you were going to ask me that.
Yeah.
But another weird fact is that they will actually find naturally moving males as well. So there is that group that they translocated, but they will also find males that travel either north or south hundreds of miles looking for new habitat.
Interesting. But scientists will go out and target these individuals or females, is what you're saying?
No. So they're literally just, they're swimming trying to find new habitat, like on their own.
Oh, these males are going out and trying to find them.
Yeah, on their own.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. Kind of weird, right?
Yeah, I mean, there's for such like a, I don't know, you hear about them and always staying within their little rafts. I don't know. You always see them in groups. Like you never really see them by themselves and, going out by themselves more than I would imagine. They're so small and innocent. It's just like you wouldn't imagine them going out and exploring the big old blue. Yeah.
I mean, unfortunately their habitat's so small that I'm sure their nature is to go further south. I mean, that's where they've been before. So
I mean, we have the food for them down here.
Yes, we definitely do have the food for them down here. And speaking of that, why don't you tell us a little bit about their diet, Kyle?
Yeah, I mean, the easiest one to point out for their diet is going to be urchins. That's like the main, I guess not one of the main ones, but it's a huge one for them.
It's a huge one.
But that's a huge
for
thing.
California.
Yeah, for California. I mean, we have such a huge, massive population of invasive urchins that these mammals go out and eat. Like this is like a staple of their diet, their daily. They're 25% of their body weight in food every day.
Yeah, they eat 25% of their body weight.
I mean, think about it.
20 to 30%, I think it is. Exactly.
Yeah, you don't have blubber. You just have fur.
I mean, their metabolism must be insane.
Well, think about how much they're moving around and having fun in the water.
That's true, I guess. Plus, they got to keep warm.
They're also one of the few animals like dolphins that will play with things. They're
interesting.
They're smart. So they're constantly moving. So they have to be eating a lot.
I have seen them laying with their food and playing with their food on their chests and stuff.
Yeah. So it's always fun to see that.
So they eat sea urchins. They also eat a lot of other hard shell invertebrates, right?
Mostly crabs,
snails,
urchins,
crabs,
clams,
anything like that.
Kind of stuff. Yeah. I mean, your stereotypical scene of an urchin, of a sea otter is with something on their chest and a little rock and smashing it around. Yeah. That's literally they're adapting one of the few animals that uses tools in their, I guess, repertoire of... Yeah,
I mean, one of the few animals besides humans that use tools for hunting and eating, basically.
It's really cool. I mean, you love seeing them on their back and they're just laying back and going to town on some urchins.
Chilling out on some urchins.
But I mean, over time you see it just like elephants, which is pretty cool. Their back molars are pretty much flat. So they're going to use it to grind everything up. So you see them, they have canines up front. They look sharp, but most of their action takes place in the back of the mouth.
To grind up that hard
all the hard stuff.
crustacean.
Yeah, but
Interesting.
If you think about it, I mean, they're just popping stuff in and out trying to get to that soft, nice meat. I mean,
one interesting thing I read is that different groups, by groups are very small groups of these otters, will basically focus on specific diets. So yes, they do eat clams, mussels, urchins, so on and so forth, but they will actually have groups of them that will only eat urchins and clams or urchins and crabs or something like that. So they'll kind of pick like 2 or 3 of those small pieces and only focus on those. And the weird thing is, well, I guess it's not that weird, is they'll transfer that onto their pups. So if the mom only eats urchins, the pups are only going to eat urchins. So that's one thing that scientists are really trying to focus on, is getting otters back down here to Southern California and having that group focus on specific diets.
Yeah, you have to bring them down as a family, basically, a family unit.
Exactly.
So you can,
yeah. But if you started one group of them and they reproduced, that entire group would only be focusing on that one organism as far as food goes.
Yeah, the one food source.
Right. So that was pretty cool.
I just hope that we can get. I mean, it's because like we've talked about it multiple times on this episode. Is urchins and the impact that they have is on the kelp bed, and just how massive. Even with our own, our own fisheries going after them, it's still just like the rate that they're going, and it's so hard to see that this poor little animal is basically trying its best to just survive.
Yeah,
and it really can off of something that's so impactful on the ecosystem that they're involved in. So I just hope that wow, Nicholas Island is further south. I mean, so
it is further south, and that's, like I said, one of their experimental groups that they're trying to not necessarily force them, but see if they're still capable of living down here.
Right.
And I'm assuming as that group continues to grow, they'll continue to add those experimental groups into more locations along the coast.
I think the hard part mostly along the coast is it's most of them that we see them in the wild. They're like a very protected coast. There's like, you can almost do nothing in the water there.
Yeah.
So as you go further south, a lot of our waters are very,
they're very populated.
Yeah, it doesn't. I mean, I think the islands, our Channel Islands that we just talked about, are a beautiful place that they can.
Yeah,
I would hope.
I definitely think that they would flourish there.
How cool would that be to go on the boat and one day and just see otters?
That'd be awesome. Go diving with some otters. That'd be super cool.
And not have to drive to Morro Bay. Like, we have to drive 3 hours to go see otters in the wild.
But speaking of diving, they do dive pretty deep.
Yeah.
I think normally they're diving down.
Well, you said it like 60 foot.
Yeah, 30, 60 feet. But I think they can get down to like 300 feet.
Really? Is there recorded evidence of this?
There is recorded evidence.
Oh, man.
Yeah, they can get down to 300 feet. That's pretty impressive. I mean, when we go diving, especially free diving, you're kind of sticking 60 feet and up.
Yeah, like in their normal range.
Yeah, in their normal range. Any more than that, and you start, pushing your limits a little bit.
Yeah.
For most normal people like us.
I just can't even imagine at 300 foot, like what they would be going after. I mean, obviously food that's the whole point, but man, 300 feet at 150, you start to lose light. It's just so that's one of the cool things about otters is how tactile they are. I know you said that they use tools and stuff, but they actually kind of adapted to working in those no light environments, right? Because most of these crabs, urchins, mussels, and stuff are underneath rocks. Right.
So they have claws that can retract so they can pull them off the rocks. They have whiskers so they know if they can fit in a hole. Right?
Like a cat. I mean,
like a cat or a dog.
Yeah.
They have whiskers to show them how big their body is, basically.
Right.
And they have really sensitive paws. So they can feel around and find this food in no light situations. So that answers that question as far as what they're doing down there. They're looking for food.
Yeah.
They don't normally dive that deep, but they sure can.
I mean, yeah, and there's going to be circumstances where they're going to have to. So
yeah. So you did talk about tools and stuff. Another cool thing that I saw was they actually have pouches.
Yeah, I corrected you on this.
So when I first started,
Nick's like, no, they're
looking into this. I didn't think that they had pouches, but they actually have like literal like kangaroo type pouches.
They have a favorite rock.
That's another thing. Yeah. So in this pouch, they actually hold tools.
Yeah.
They will literally keep rocks that they keep for a long time as their specific rock in their little pouch, in their little tool pouch.
But they're mammals, not marsupials. And they have a pouch.
Yeah. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, that blew your mind not too long ago when I saw
I mean, it's just they have their little tool pouch. That's so funny.
It's tool belt, dude. They're the little.
Like I could totally see him like, where's my rock?
Here we go. And just pulls it out.
Yeah, so they'll find prey and stuff in there, or they'll put prey in there. They'll tuck their food in there, you know,
Little
when they're at
snacks
the
for later.
bottom,
Yeah.
and take it up to the surface, and then sit there with their little rock, cracking their stuff open and pulling new stuff out of their pouch.
Yeah. It's funny to see. It's like you can, when you go to Morro Bay, you can hear them and see them like
Actually cracking
cracking
stuff,
stuff
yeah.
and on their chests
Yeah.
and their cute little noises and stuff.
Yep. But yeah, so for everybody, they have pouches.
Little pouches. I
You
would
learn something every day.
I'd probably call them more like pockets than
Yeah,
pouches.
that's true. Yeah, they're not big.
No, they're very
they're-
small. It's not, when you think of a pouch in an animal, the first thing you always think of is a kangaroo.
Right.
These are literally like little pockets underneath
Yeah.
their front arms.
Yeah, underneath
forget-
their front arms.
I forget what the scientific term for your front arms were, but
Armpits?
no, like your front arms, extremities. I don't know, but anyway, it's like a small little pocket, and it's the cutest little thing.
I want small little body pockets.
Can you right? Just stuff my own little rocks in there. Oh, that's a cool rock. Let's just keep that one.
So kind of speaking of the pouches and stuff, do they have babies that they put in there?
No, I wish that would be cute and
that would be
adorable.
cute.
But they're little pups do
Okay.
stick with them for a pretty long amount of time. And
So
I mean,
babies are called pups.
pups, yeah,
That's
just like
pretty
a puppy.
adorable.
And if you look at them too, they are like the cutest thing. If you guys have never seen a baby otter, just look up baby otter, baby sea otter, and it's
Baby sea
the
otter.
cutest little thing.
Little like fluff balls.
Yeah, and I think the cutest thing I've ever seen, honestly, was recently I was in Morro Bay. We were coming back down from Santa Cruz, and Morro Bay, this little mama had a baby pup, and got a little close to shore, and girlfriend's looking at her, and she's like, "Oh, look at how cute!" And the mom just went like, "Rawr," like right after the pup.
Oh no.
Grabbed it by the scruff and was like, "You get back here!" Basically,
jeez.
and it was the cutest thing. And the mom just takes the pup, grabs it by the scruff of their mouth, swims off a little bit further offshore, and just plops it on her chest. And the
Like
little,
you sit here now.
yeah, exactly. And the pup was just like, "Oh, okay." It was the mom got so mad because she got
That's
so close
crazy.
to shore. Yeah,
That's
they're so
crazy.
protective over them. But they stick with them for, I mean, it's like a 4 or 5 months. They'll stick with their mom.
Oh wow. Okay.
But they're one of the, so they're mammals. They drink milk.
Right.
But they're only on milk for about, I think it's like 4 to 6 weeks, and they'll start going and actually diving down at 6 weeks for their own food. 4 weeks.
How big are they when they're born?
They're pretty small, about 4 to 5 pounds.
4 to 5 pounds. Okay.
Yeah.
So the adults are, what did we say, 60?
The males were
62?
60 and the
60,
females were
40?
like 40. Yeah.
Interesting. So what? That's probably like 2 feet.
Yeah. Well, 2 feet.
Yeah. So the babies are 2 feet when they're born, weighing 4 to 5 pounds.
Yeah.
I'm pulling information out of you.
Pulling it out of your pouch, huh?
Yeah. So their breeding season is September to November. They do breed all year long, but that's like the peak season. Males have multiple partners. Females only have one. So
Yeah.
which makes sense.
One thing that's cool about their actual breeding, though, that we found out was gestation periods. It's really interesting. They're so all over the board. I mean, it's literally, you can have a gestation period of as small as
Yeah. So I think normal is 6 months.
normal is 6 months, like average, but it can be pushed out to a year.
Yeah.
I mean, you can see them before birth and they're pregnant for about a year.
Yeah.
I couldn't find any information of what controlled that, or, maybe it was environmental, but
Could be environmental. I read something about them kind of holding off on giving birth until after winter months. So they were actually able to control that.
yeah, but it's not a year.
No, but I mean, if your 6 months is coming up towards the winter, right? And you're like,
Yeah, I guess.
it's getting kind of cold. I'm going to wait a couple months.
Yeah. I mean,
So yeah, males have one partner. But they are, unfortunately, because they're so cute, they're kind of aggressive towards the females. They will beat them up, give them bloody noses, scratch them. And that's,
it's a rough life
it's
out there.
kind of sad, but
No, you see that a lot in
you do.
animal or in nature.
They're just so cute looking. I can't imagine them like beating up on each other.
No, I mean, you can't imagine any harm coming to these cute little animals. I mean, their little faces, they look like puppies. I mean,
Yeah.
they're water dogs. It's just
Yeah.
the cutest thing imaginable. And it's just, I can't even,
know, right?
It's so sad.
When the newborns are born, though, this was kind of cool. They're so buoyant that they can't dive.
Oh, their fur is so dense.
Their fur is so
pup
dense,
fur.
yeah. So they
Oh, man.
come out and they have this like thick coat, basically, and it's so puffy and floaty that they literally cannot dive under the water.
Oh, man.
Isn't that crazy?
They're like little wiffle balls. You just
Yeah.
push them down
Yeah.
and keep coming back
Yeah,
up.
and like you said, they sit on the mom's chest and get
Yeah.
groomed for like 2 months
yeah, until they
That's
can
crazy.
actually go on their own.
and start looking for food. Yeah,
But like you said, it's the coolest thing is their moms and dads teach them what food is right and wrong, I guess, basically.
Moms.
Yeah.
dads are out of the picture.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah, dads have multiple mates, so they don't really care.
Sad life.
Yeah, they got their mom. They got their mom to hide in the pouch.
They don't go in the pouch.
I know, but that would be cute.
We've discussed this.
Yeah. So they I totally just lost my train of thought.
That's okay.
I'm so sorry.
No worries. I mean, we get the thing that we've kind of touched on just barely and like grazed the surface as is like their actual ecosystem and like how important this animal is to that ecosystem.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So otters are what's called a keystone species. Now, if you've never heard that term before, it basically means that species impacts lots and lots of other species in that environment.
They're vital to it.
They're very vital to it. And taking that species out, unfortunately, has really, really bad consequences, which we've seen in otters, right? So with otters, the issue was basically that when the otters were here, they were eating the urchins and stuff. Now that we have no otters, we have no urchins. We have more urchins.
I was about to
Man, I'm sorry. I'm all over the place right now. Yeah, so the keystone species, being a keystone species, they have a really big impact on that nearshore ecological community.
Yeah.
Basically the beach.
I like to think of them as like the urchin police.
Yeah. At least down here, yeah.
Their population control is what it is, basically. I mean, when you have a big enough group, they can make an impact on a creature like the urchin that is detrimental to kelp beds, and they sit there, and they're going to take them out. It's like a hit mission, right? That's their food source, right? That's a whole... That is the food cycle. What is it? The food pyramid?
Yeah.
Anyway.
Food chain.
Yeah, thank you. God,
you're welcome.
Holy cannoli.
I know.
Whew.
Falling apart here.
They're part of it. So it's like, it's crazy to me, like, to think, like just 100 years ago, right?
Yeah.
We would have not had this impact of urchins. And I wish I could like show people a picture of when we dive. It's just purple everywhere. It's purple.
Yeah, it's big fields of just urchins.
And that is like, to an otter, that's just like a buffet. They're just like, basically, yeah, right? Yeah. So it's like, it's so cool to hear that that's making such an impact. And it's actually, you know, you look at scientists and the conservation efforts, and it's like the impact is so great that these little mammals are having on urchins, that their food source is so plentiful. They're estimating skyrocketing.
Yeah, you had some numbers earlier that you were telling me. It was pretty crazy.
In the next 3 years, this was last year's study, 2019. Okay.
2019.
2019. So sorry, 2 years ago.
Yeah.
That in 3 to 4 years, they're going to estimate numbers from 3,000, which they are currently, to about 10,000.
Oh, wow. So more than double.
Yeah. So the conservation
triple
efforts of the otter are revered, and like of scientists' efforts is revered as one of the best conservation efforts.
That's crazy.
Of any marine life animal, because it's, I mean, the history, they were just decimated.
Right.
I mean, absolutely just destroyed. And it's so hard to see because, like you said, a keystone animal was just like looked at and be like, oh, cool, that's mine now.
Yeah.
You know?
Speaking of mortality and stuff like that, they do still have a 60% mortality rate, which is a lot.
Yeah. It's...
the main cause of this. So sea otters, we talked about them being a keystone species. They're also what's called an indicator species, which basically means that they can indicate the health of the environment that they live in. Right. So because sea otters eat those filter feeders, urchins, clams, crabs, right? The environment that those organisms live in affects the sea otters in return. So if you have any sort of chemicals or anything coming from land to the sea, those urchins and stuff are going to suck it up because they're filtering the water.
Right.
So if it's in the water, it's in the urchins. If it's in the urchins, unfortunately, it's affecting the otters.
Yeah.
So it's kind of a chain of unfortunate events that actually
series of unfortunate events.
Yes. Oh,
sorry.
Took me a second.
It's a book.
Yeah. So that unfortunately means that they do have a very high mortality rate in populated areas, which unfortunately means that Southern California is going to be a problem.
Yeah.
They're going to struggle living down here.
I think
we have the food for them, but how healthy is that food?
Yeah. I mean, you would think if it's healthy enough for us. I mean, we have people farming it all the time.
That's true.
It's, you know, of course it's going to take time for them to be down here. And I don't know, I would hope in my lifetime that I could be able to just walk and be like, oh, it's an otter.
Like you said, it would be so cool to be able to go and dive with otters on the islands. That'd be cool.
I don't know what I would do if I just saw an otter one day, like, you know,
yeah.
You see harbor seals and those are adorable, but
right.
a sea otter is a whole nother ball game of cute, man. And it's just like, I mean, that goes into the history. It's like, we had this discussion, and it's we talk about their numbers and how small they are, and it got to that way for a reason, right? And
Yeah.
this is the history of it, and I can't even establish or comprehend what people were thinking and doing, even just even just 100 years ago, 202 years ago, of literally just going in here and decimating these animals, going in, taking them and skinning these little animals that look like puppies for their fur. I understand the complexity and the benefits of their fur. But you look at this little animal that makes a squeak.
Well, I mean, we talked about it earlier with the technology, right? Like this fur is super insulating.
Yeah.
It's technology that we've adapted to have in our lives, like with wetsuits.
Yeah.
So back then, when you have this animal that literally is made to live in cold weather.
Yeah, and I guess
it's like, how do you not take that and use it?
Yeah, and especially looking at where technology was back then. I mean, so to put in context, the fur trade really started in the late 1700s down here in North America anyway. Started in Alaska, where sea otters used to run from Alaska to Baja California.
Right.
We're specifically right now talking about a California sea otter, but sea otters in general ran from Alaska all the way to Baja California. And the Russians came in and just figured out pretty early on that, the fur is a wonderful thing. I mean, if you look at where they were discovered in Alaska and Russia, it's a very cold environment, and they see these animals
living in this cold environment,
playing
just
in
fine.
The water that's got ice in it. They're like, well, how are they doing that?
Yeah.
It's got fur. We know from other animals it's got fur. So they started scooping them up, and it's unfortunate that the route that it took. But you look at human expansion and the way it is back then, it's just full bore towards it, right? So
we've talked about it before. Unfortunately, back then there wasn't the mentality of what is this going to do in 300 years.
Right.
It's not.
It wasn't a conservation.
It wasn't a conservation effort. It wasn't how is this going to impact. It was people in 300
survive
years.
And make money.
Exactly. Let's make money and let's figure out new technology. And unfortunately, figuring out new technology means using nature to figure out that technology. Yeah.
I mean, and the Russians discovered it so early on and started selling it so quickly and early on that, I mean, almost every nation that was had any form of
like impact or
what is the holy establishment? Holy cannoli!
Okay.
Any establishment in North America quickly got onto this fur trade. Whether mostly otters, beavers, anything with fur that could shed water very quickly, hopped on this board. And so, I mean, your main fur traders on the West Coast were obviously going to be Britain. The biggest one was Russia. I mean, and if you've ever heard of it, Fort Ross in Sonoma, California, was a Russian establishment. Set up around fur trading and actually hemp, which was pretty funny. It grew well here. But I mean, what it started from was fur trade.
Okay.
And I mean, think of how many animals it takes to set up an establishment or a settlement, right?
Yeah.
I mean, of these little creatures that you just said, the max size is 4 foot.
Yeah.
So estimated numbers when Russians started hunting these things were right around 300,000 sea otters.
300,000?
300,000.
Like along the whole coast.
That's 100,000 times. Is it 100,000 times? Yeah, more than what we have right now.
Yeah, yeah. Because you said we have
3,000.
3,000?
Oh, that's 100 times more.
Yeah.
100 times more than what we have right now, which is just astonishing to me. They decimated those numbers all the way down to what they thought was zero, right? They thought they made them extinct? So they thought they were like, oh, well, we hunted them all, right?
Oh, geez.
And this was in the late 1800s into the 1900s. And until luckily a small pocket was found in Morro Bay area.
Okay.
And it was just under 100 of them. But think about that. Into
300,000 down to 100?
So,
wow.
You couldn't find any numbers on it. It was a trade, right? It's a trade. But to think about that, in how many nations made an effort to come out here to the west coast of California or the United States, North America, to put up with and get into the establishment of trade. And the biggest one is Russia. I mean, they have to cross a whole ocean to get over here, realizing how impactful this is, right?
Yeah. I mean, that shows you how much money was in it.
Yeah.
The fact that they were really willing to travel that far just to get
French, Dutch, British, Mexican, Spanish, Russians, all were involved in sea otter trade.
That's crazy.
To me, it's a crazy amount of history to it. And I mean, that the decimation of it and the discovery of that small pocket brings us into the conservation of what it is today.
Right. I mean, going from 1,000 or from 100, I mean, to 3,000 that's impressive.
In just under 100 years. just a little bit over 100 years.
Not
yeah.
bad.
Yeah. I mean, so
mean,
that's why
that's-
it's revered as one of the greatest ones. So they first started being protected in 1911, right? So from the late 1700s, almost 200 years of just hunting these things to extinction. And it's the hard part is like reading a couple journals and a couple things like that. I just went way too into depth of the history of this. Is the fur traders it was easy. They're just easy prey. I mean, there's the unfortunate side of it is there was literally guys writing journals like, we just pick them off the shore.
Yeah. I mean, it's the same thing with like whales and stuff too.
Yeah, slow-moving creature.
Yeah. Why not? It's there.
Yeah.
It's useful.
It's useful and it's easy and it sells for and trades for wonderful things, you know,
lots of money.
Especially because sea otters were ineptly adapt to just the west coast of California or west coast of the United States and North America. Whew, man.
It's okay.
Brain is just
I'm moving so much information.
Moving too fast for my mouth. All over the world, you would see sea otter pelts being traded for astronomical prices and things like that. But it's just so sad to see these guys in their journals and their writings and in newspapers like record numbers of sea otter pelts and trade, reported. And it's just like, and then you get in 1911 and they're like, well, we only have a few, so let's protect them, right? Like,
yeah. At least they said that.
Yeah, I mean, it took till 1911.
At least they weren't just like, oh, hey, look, more hats.
Yeah, right.
That could have been bad.
Yeah, but like we said, the conservation effort is to be able to hit that number and finally protect them, and they are 100% protected. You can't even
I was
touch
going to ask you.
things.
So, is there anything specific that they're doing to protect them, or just literally just saying?
So they literally have areas of where you're allowed to see otters. Where where otters are allowed to live and where otters aren't allowed to live. They have like a no otter zone and a go otter zone. But then it's also just, I mean, every marine protection agency is like, you see an otter, it's like, that is like the holy grail. You do not even go near that. It's like sea turtles in Hawaii and stuff like that. You can't even touch them. Right. And we have to leave them alone. We have to establish that this animal, like you said, is a keystone. So this is, and when I think of a keystone, I think of an archway. The keystone is literally.
That's exactly where it comes from.
Yeah. So the keystone, you pull that out, the whole archway falls.
Right. Exactly.
Right. So we pull these guys out. Luckily, we caught that and miraculously didn't just obliterate the crap out of them.
I mean, look where we are down here. Imagine the entire coast being like that. The kelp forests would probably not be around anymore.
Yeah. It's crazy. And looking at the literally hundreds of thousands of people that migrated to our coasts to hunt these animals. I mean, fur trade it's literally, when I went into a few databases that I have access to, still with school, I just type in fur trade.
Oh yeah.
And the first thing that comes up is California Sea Otter. And it's because the numbers were so low and there's so much reporting on it, so many news articles or newspapers, because it was so impactful. I mean, a lot of, when you think of the gold rush, or when you think of California, you think of the gold rush being one of the things.
Right.
The
fur trade was bigger?
It's referred to as the fur rush.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Because people
That's insane. That's so many people.
And it was a controlled thing, because early on it was just Alaskan tribes taking them and realizing them. And there's small groups of Alaskan tribes. And I'm going to assume, and I couldn't find it, I didn't look too much into the Native American. I should have. It's something
I would imagine that they were using them.
Yeah.
That would make sense. But the numbers were aligned. The sea otters were able to maintain their population even with small numbers of them being used as tools.
Right. And the thing I looked at next was, if you look at Alaskans and the technology that they had, it was basically like small canoes and like nets, maybe.
Right.
You bring in Russians.
Yeah, you start upping the technology. We've talked about that before with the coral reefs.
Yeah.
You go from catching fish with fishing rods and spears to using dynamite. Like
exactly.
That species is not able to maintain its population. When you start upping the technology and using technology that takes more of it easier, it's not able to keep up. There's a limit to what you can take.
Exactly. And that's what happened is, the Russians, the Dutch, and the British all just came in with big nets, big boats, a lot of groups of people, and just rounded them up. And they said, and I mean, one journal I read was like, it's just easy to catch them.
That's insane.
I was like,
I mean, it makes sense.
I mean,
they wouldn't be hard to catch.
This guy was writing an article on how excited he was on how many of these little water puppies he was killing.
I know the money was there, and I'm sure that had a big impact, but I could never even imagine trying to kill an otter.
It's such a different time. And I mean, like we said, it's history. Is like, I can understand the situation that they're in, and it's the fur rush. It's a commodity that you realized is going to make you rich.
Yeah, it's going to make your family rich for generations.
Yeah, but now we're to the point where, we have to, these things are literally, they're like little gold nuggets in the water. Like, they're so protected.
Yeah.
And that's the coolest thing, is when we finally looked at the conservation numbers, and I found so many articles on those numbers being boosted to upwards of 10,000 in the next couple of years. It just
Wow.
shows that they're making a comeback. Humans realize that like these are vital, like you said, the Keystone, and it is hugely. And like you said, with Nicholas Island, they're coming back down south.
Yeah,
So,
yeah, that's awesome. 10,000 in the next 10 years.
Yeah.
roughly.
So-
I mean, that's pretty cool. That means that we are going to start seeing them down
Yeah.
here. I mean, give it 20 years. That's probably what 20, 30,000.
yeah, and
That's pretty cool.
not touching their numbers that they were, but I mean that's still going to be they're going to be vital to our environment again, which is all we need.
Yeah, yeah. We just need them to start
Yeah.
helping.
Yeah.
basically.
I got a little energy rush there with the history moment there.
I saw that. That was good. I kind of let you just go with it.
Yeah,
man.
it's, history just gets me going, man.
It's awesome. I love learning all that stuff. It's outside of my realm of knowledge, so that's always fun for me. But
Yeah.
that's pretty much sea otters. I know I loved learning about them. I love learning new. I mean, pouches. Who knew?
I did. I did.
You did know, and I was impressed. That was impressive. But yeah, they're super awesome animals.
They're adorable.
I'm sure there's a lot of information on them that we did not touch on. Maybe we'll come back to it in the future because they are a really
Maybe
cool species.
We'll get into different types of otters. There's river otters too.
That is true. Yeah, there's lots of different types of otters
Inland otters.
and weasels
Weasels.
because they're the same family. But yeah, with that, guys, I think that's pretty much it. If you are watching on YouTube, please do leave us a like. Click that subscribe button. Click on the little bell notification so that you
Yep.
get alerted when we actually post our episodes
And
every
if
2
you're
weeks.
listening to us, be sure to rate us and pass us on to your friends.
Yes.
Rating
yes.
is the best way to get us to listen out there. So
Yep.
we appreciate
the
it, guys.
more people listening, the more videos we make and
Yeah.
podcasts.
Yeah.
But yeah, hopefully everybody has a good day, and we will see you guys in 2 weeks.
Right on.
Bye.